everyone. Welcome to another episode of Breakthrough, a show about mastering the mindsets of success. Breakthrough is proudly brought to you by Leaderonomics and Opeaklife. My name is Lisa Wong. I'm a transformation coach at Opeaklife and Mindvalley and former anchor at ESPN. It's my vision to bring to you the stories of successful individuals and deep dive into how they build themselves to become the person they are, so you're inspired and committed to live your best life personally and professionally. Today, I have Allison Graham on the show. Allison is a keynote speaker who spoke at Fortune 500 companies and the author of Take Back Your Weekend, Stress Less, Do More, Be Happier. Hi, Allison. It's so wonderful to have you on Breakthrough.
To be with you, and I love what you do. You are inspiring people across the globe, and so it's awesome to get to have this conversation. I know it's going to be, we're going to go in a lot of different directions, so excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So Allison, tell me now, to begin, I'm going to put a frame on our discussion. Most of us run the hamster wheel, and we know the struggles of grappling with finding balance between our work and personal life. Now, it's hard, but we want to get better at this. So firstly, on how to leverage on stress. Secondly, on how to increase productivity output per hour. And thirdly, how to better operate life. So the ultimate goal is, based on your book topic, stress less, do more, and be happy. So I'm going to start with finding out what your journey, what inspired you to begin in this space? I mean, did you have a story like you were grappling with time?
Absolutely. And actually, I remember the exact moment when I started my resiliency journey. And I was actually sitting in the hospital across from my neurologist. And I was like, if you have an image of what burnout is, I was it, right? 2 years before that particular moment, I had had a surgery and things went really wrong, and I ended up with neuropathic damage. And essentially what that feels like is having a serrated edge knife twisting into your side, and it just doesn't stop. And so in that moment, when I was just desperate, I'd had not just the surgery, I'd been 2 years unable to find a way to handle the pain at the time. And I'd had 6 people in my life who all died in a very short period of time. And my doctor said, Allison, you need to reevaluate your expectations for your life. You are never going to work full time again, and you are never going to be off pain medication. And through that desperation in that moment, I knew that that was not the answer. That quitting and giving up on my dreams and shutting down my business, I'd only been, 6 months into my speaking and training career at that point in my life. And I was 2 years at this point, like when the surgery happened. And so I was like, no, that's not the answer. And I mean, I wouldn't say like I was that strong. I was more like, it's not the answer. And he said, well, then you're going to need to learn how to be resilient. And it was just enough hope that if I could figure that out. And now, many years later, what I've come to realize is that resilience was half of the answer. In actual fact, I needed to figure out a better way to solve all of the issues that were in my life. I needed a way to be more productive and to look at the different stresses in my life so that I could maximize how I'm showing up. I had 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day, and I needed to build a business in that time. And so it was just the first domino that led to the entire body of work that I've been sharing for the last many years.
Wow.
So, by the way, he was wrong. I am not on pain medication, and
wonderful.
I do work full time. So take that, doctor.
Well, there you go. It's magical what you are capable of within. I mean, when you do things that completely confound even the medical practice. Yeah. So tell us, sorry, you want to say something?
Well, it's just, they're in every person's life. Like, that's my story, but everybody has their own version of a knife that feels like it's twisting into them, right? That can steal our capacity. And we go through different times in our life where it's more intense versus times when everything seems great. And in those times when we don't have that adversity that we're facing, that's when we need to create the systems. That's the most important time when we want to maximize our daily capacity get the systems in place so we're incredibly productive, and then we can manage those difficult times even better.
Truly, yeah, agree. Well, hello, Catherine and Roshan. Thank you for commenting there. Catherine says, good day, Lisa and Allison. Nice to meet you both. Nice to meet you too, Catherine. So, Allison, that must have been a long journey. So how long did it take you to formulate all the strategies and also to kind of have a framework that really worked for you? And also tell us, it must have been a journey, because all I can think of is, sometimes even just for me thinking this, right? You want to do things and accomplish things, especially a lot of things on your tasks. So a full task list, but then feeling that sometimes you just want to take a breather and enjoy life. So finding that balance. So yes.
Okay. So in terms of how long did it take me, I believe it's a continual journey. So we all, when you really master resilience, it doesn't take away the suckage, right? Like we still have life that happens around us. And so I'm constantly reevaluating and going into the self-awareness and choosing and testing, like, is this the most effective way to do this, the most efficient? So the journey continues. There was definitely about a year of intense strategy work and figuring this out to get my basis where I could work and really succeed again, despite the pain. So that was and then things evolved over the course of the decade. I mean, this meeting would have been in 2009. So I'm a long way out of that initial, hit the depths of burnout. It's interesting what you said about, because you talked about a lot of things. So my mind is going a million times a minute on this. But I used to have a Post-it note on my mirror that said, deserve to hit the pillow. Now, when you think about the judgment that is in that Post-it note, if I didn't feel like I had contributed enough to the world, I would literally not allow myself to take a break and go to sleep. And we're just not designed like that as humans, right? And the guilt, I remember in January, I was talking with one of my, it was a coaching client, our very first call, right? And you're a coach, you're talking with people about very deep issues, right? And you know how this could possibly happen. You get into a safe place, and about 5 minutes into the call, she just started to cry. And she said, Allison, she said, the workload, she said, I feel so guilty. She said, because when I'm with my family, I know that the work is piling up and I my mind is over there. But when I'm working, I feel guilty because I'm not spending time with my family. And she said, I can't get caught up. And I'm like, yeah, that your to-do list is never going to end. This is not the right goal. Getting to net zero on what I need to get done is not a reasonable carrot to be chasing. And so, we've worked through that and given her some better systems. And I think so many people are chasing this level of productivity that is actually backfiring. Right? Because if we're not taking our breaks, if we're not recharging and resting and allowing ourselves the space in our day to day to have the creativity, to be innovative, to actually, really get into flow and do the work that we're meant to do and serve at our highest level, then if we don't have the recharge and we don't allow ourselves to do that from a guilt-free perspective and on a regular basis, then we're just setting ourselves up for burnout and not actually achieving our full potential.
I agree. Now, Wong said, wow, I know a lot of people who feel that way. Catherine says, dead on, Allison. Yeah. Now, I love one of your...
I think this story is so what people are going through. Right. And the more we can talk about it, which is why I think your work is so important, Lisa, bringing the story out into the public. And I know a lot of people are talking about it, right? I love the mental health conversation that we're having out in the world, in the corporate world and in businesses. It's definitely shifting.
Yes. Yes. And your book has, one of the quotes, I take this, and I love that. A to-do list doesn't end. The finish line always moves. Chasing its completion is a game you can't win. So the tasks to be done are not actually the problem. It's the negative emotional and mental connection to the unfinished tasks that's the problem. So here, beautiful Allison with her book, Take Back Your Weekends. It's all about doing more, stress less, and be happier. So yeah, Allison, I love that quote. Maybe you can help me sum up some deeper, more fundamental
Yeah,
approach behind
absolutely.
this.
Because so here's the thing, this emotional connection to our to-do list is where I think a lot of people are creating destructive stress in their life unnecessarily. And so if you feel overwhelmed or anxious about the fact that you have a lot to do, then you are always going to be at risk of being in a state of overwhelm and anxiousness, because the to-do list is never going to end. And people are walking around as if like your to-do list is not a predator, right? Like it is not chasing you. It's not a bear in the woods that should be causing this level of reaction. And so a lot of my work is figuring out and unpacking what is the misplaced emotion around the tasks that we do in our day-to-day. What is the negative storyline that we're sharing and adding and making something more complicated? And then what are the barriers to performance, like procrastination, worrying, judgment, comparison, not saying no, not setting our boundaries? Like, what are we adding to each and every task that we do that is actually making each of those tasks harder to do? And so my work is like blasting through that framework, like that all of those things that are packing around the tasks and obstacles.
So coming to this, I mean, we hear a lot of experts who talk about managing your time, optimizing your time, being really smart, being really efficient.
Yes.
Taking all that from a healthy perspective to know that, okay, you know what, I'm going to learn some new strategies to optimize, to be better. But having a high expectation where you think that, out of the 10 tasks on your list, you have to fulfill all those 10. That is heavy. That is pressurizing. Is that even sustainable? Is that something that even we want to encourage people to achieve? I mean, what's your take on this, Allison?
So I think the big starting point for this is we've got to figure out what tasks are actually that you're having to do and what is reasonable, what is not, how long. Like, I think people aren't even aware, how long does something take me to do? Like, if you have a recurring task, let's figure out does that take you 10 minutes, or does it actually, you think it takes you 10 minutes, but it actually takes you 35? Right? Like, that awareness, we can't solve the actual productivity issue in our day-to-day unless we take a step back and look at it all very objectively. And so this is the problem solving framework that is universal that I share, right? Where we talk about situational awareness, then self-awareness, then we get into solution activation. And my frustration with a lot of productivity programs is they jump directly to solution activation before we've done the work up front of situational awareness, which is essentially what's really happening, what is the black and white of it, stripping away all the storyline, all the negative emotion. Let's really just look at the issue objectively. And in this case, we're talking about your time. And then the next piece is your self-awareness. And with this is where we dive deep into how am I reacting to what's going on? And potentially, how am I making it harder to deal with? Because if we have patterns that are showing up, and I used to be two of my big barriers to performance, the first one was worrying. Oh my gosh, would I worry about a meeting or a speech or something that was coming up for days? I don't know if anybody who's on the chat box can identify with that. But if you take a task that is going to take you 1 hour, or a meeting that's going to take you an hour, and you're going to prep for 2 hours, but you worry about it for a week, it actually didn't take you 2 hours. It took you a week plus 2 hours of your personal capacity. And the second one that I have really had to put structure in to overcome is procrastination, right? So if you procrastinate on a task that's going to take you 30 minutes and you spend 3 days not doing that task, it actually takes you 3 days plus 30 minutes. And so these are the things we need to uncover. We need to figure out why am I doing that? Or not even why am I doing that, but like, how do I break that pattern? Because then the solution is a better chance of sticking. So this is my thinking, because I always went to the solution first. And the greatest example of this, and I know we're talking about our businesses and our work life, but most people who have ever been on a diet or know somebody who has can identify. It's often solution first thinking, meaning I need to lose some weight. So, oh, keto is really popular. I'm going to go on keto. We go to this. And the first 3 days, you're great. And on day 4, you are, sitting on the couch watching Netflix, maybe drinking a bottle of wine and eating nachos, right? Like, it's not that keto or paleo or whole foods or an insert diet here, the solution didn't work. You didn't do the work up front in order to get the right solution for you so it will stick. And so this is where I'm really hoping people will get to. If they want to solve the productivity issue in their life and take back their weekends and be able to take that guilt-free time, then we need to step back. We need to go situational awareness, what's really happening, self-awareness, how am I responding and potentially making it harder? And then we can fill in the blank on how do we get your work done and how do we get through that task circle. So you're always in flow during your weekday, increase your outputs per hour, and then take the time off and enjoy your life.
There's one thing I always find when just listening to you, and it's gem what you're talking about, what you just brought up and what you raised. I find a lot just from coaching experience where the challenge with most people is that the whole awareness part, this thinking part of the brain, we're not utilizing it to think about, how is the situation? How much do we know of us? How much do I know of myself? What are my strengths? What do I like? What I don't like? What bores me? What inspires me? What drives me, right? So by knowing all that, then you're, as you say, you are more aware, you're probably better equipped to analyze what the situational awareness is, what your self-awareness is of the problem. Would that be something that you agree on, Allison?
Oh my gosh. I think self-awareness is the key to unlocking it all. Like if there's something going on in your life and you are not happy, if you are not in flow, if you are not feeling like you are living up to your potential in this very moment, self-awareness is the key to unlocking how you fix that. It is the journey. And I got to tell you, and I bet you know this, it can be hard. It can feel embarrassing. It can be like, oh gosh, did I do that? And my technique in the old days was, I called it my gotta go technique. Okay. I don't like how it feels over here. So I'm going to be busy and I got to go over there. Right. It's basically classic denial. And when we become self-aware, and I mean, I might be on the other end of this where I'm like so obsessed with self-awareness. It's like, oh yeah, to know your faults and be okay with them. Like there's such a freedom that comes in that, right? Like, knowing your tendencies. But I think people generally, at least in my experience, don't like to go inward as much as they probably need to in order to really step in. And I know like there's no separation, right, between our work and who we are as a person. And so having that conversation is so critical because that self-awareness will drive how you show up and how you produce in your business.
Now let's bring some clarity into probably some main points that I suppose our audience also can actually, resonate with. So this part of us having, let's say, the to-do list, and this is something that all of us are equipped, especially if you're running a business or if you're an employee, you know that every day of your work starts with something that you know that you have to achieve or accomplish. So you put, as I know, your most important task first thing. So until that is achieved, everything else below it is a distraction.
Yes. And a step before this, when is your best flow? So there are some people who work best in the afternoon. Not me. Not me. But I'll tell you, I get up first thing in the morning and that's when I'm going to get my best work done. So we've got to figure out that time, and then we make that time sacred for you. That is not when you go for meetings. That is not when start doing social media and posting. That's when you do your big important tasks each day. So figure out what's your optimal flow state, like your time of day when you're going to do the best work, and then block it out in your calendar. And unless it's a client or a highly important meeting, it's off limits. And one of the things I've done with teams on different like leadership retreats is figured out what is everybody's optimal time of day when they can do the work. And then as a team, everybody respects that, right? Like, so everybody says, okay, these are my 2 hours. Unless there is literally a fire or somebody is calling the police, nobody gets to talk to me during that time. Because if you don't have blocks of time, at least one in each day where you can actually get the important work done, that's why you'll end up working on the weekends or during late at night when you should be sleeping, perhaps, because that's when you get the uninterrupted time. At least that's what I hear from professionals. It's like, I work on Saturday morning because nobody bugs me. Well, yes, and you're having to work on Saturday morning because nobody bugs you because you're not setting boundaries to have that uninterrupted time during the week.
Yes, that's
Right?
right. Yes. So they have, yeah, you're right. They build a fortress on the Saturday, on the weekend, because they know they are going to be uninterrupted. Now, Shasi Wax has a question. Now, for those of us who love what we do, is it important to still draw the line between work and rest, or does it matter? Or does it not matter?
It does matter. And it actually matters even more. And I am somebody who, if I didn't put structure in place to have time off, I would work 12 hours a day, all day long, 16 hours a day, because I just love creating content and I love doing this. So I totally understand what you're saying about loving the work you do. The thing is that our brains need the break so that we can do what we do at our optimal levels. So when you think about stress and how stress was like the intent of stress, it not all stress is bad. Right? So it was really like we're going along in our baseline. Maybe we're out in the garden eating berries, and then all of a sudden a bear comes and they either want you or the berries, one of the two. And stress hormones like flood into everything. They completely take over, and you're completely, focused and you're inspired to get to safety. And you do. So then the idea is you go over there, you get to safety. And as the bear and the threat is gone, we start to come back down to our baseline and we go back against our lives. But because of the way society has created the stress acceptance culture, what's happening is people are going and they're getting like into the spike mode, but they're not actually ever coming down and returning to baseline. And so what we want to do is we want to harness the good stress. And what that means is we want to find our, actually, I'll tell you how to do that, how to harness it in a second, because I want to talk about the opposite, which is destructive stress. Destructive stress is not going to inspire you. It is not going to focus you. It is not going to aim to keep you alive. In actual fact, it's the very thing that is creating stress-related disease. It's anything that will create overwhelm, a feeling of being overwhelmed, and anxiety. And so this is like it shows up for me where I breathe really high in my chest and I feel very buzzy, if that makes sense for people, right? Like, so I got so much to do. I'm so busy. I don't even know. And I can't focus. That is destructive stress. And so what we need to recognize that, but if we don't ever come down for the rest and recharge and having fun, and even if we love our work in it, I think this is fun. This is the most fun I'm going to have today. Well, maybe not. Who knows what today will bring? So that coming back down is actually what our body is designed to do. So we get into flow, we're in our optimal zone, we do the work, and then we have to pull ourselves away from it, do something else, get recharged. And even if it's just 5 minutes or 30 seconds is better than nothing, right? For me, it's afternoon walk out in nature for 45 minutes, right? And then I can come back and I'm ready to go again. Like this is how we really because our best ideas come when we're not trying to get them.
Mm. Yes.
The
Yes.
shower, the working out, just the being off. And if we don't ever give ourselves to get that, we may skim over, we may never actually have the best ideas we could have because we're not using this natural rhythm that our body needs to experience optimal performance.
Hmm. So you talked about negative stress. What are positive or even healthy stress? What are they like? What kind of feelings would we be encountering?
Inspired and focused. Those are the good
Oh,
stress. That's it.
that is stressful. Is that stressful? Is that
That's good stress. So
that is good stress.
Yeah, we want to be inspired and focused. So here's how it works. If we can get the trifecta, this is the beauty of it. Within our workday, if we can find work blocks that have a goal, have accountability, and have a deadline associated with them, then we want little pockets of that. And I say 45 minutes. A lot of people say 20. I don't think 20-minute focus sessions is long enough for us to get into flow. I actually love 75 minutes at a time, and I'll do these work blocks throughout my day at different times, 75 minutes of flow. Now, not every day can I get 2 or 3 of those in, but on the days when I can, right, then that's a really effective way. But here's what happens. This backfires when we misalign the deadline and we underestimate how long something is going to take us. So for example, I know Lisa used to be in the media, right? Like doing on the TV and everything, but I used to be a columnist back in the day when people actually read newsprint. Okay. It was a big deal. I had 4 columns a week. And my deadline was 3:00 in the afternoon. And for the first long while when I wrote my column, I would start at 6 a.m. and I would gather all my information and I would write the column and work all day and just like think about, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do there? And I'd change it. And then I'd submit at 3:00, publishable column, done. A couple times I couldn't start early in the morning and I had to start at 2:00 in the afternoon. And lo and behold, what time do you think I got the column in? I got it in at 3:00. And I was completely inspired. I was completely focused. I had a deadline, I had accountability, and I had a goal. Write the column, get it in on time. And if I don't, my editors are going to be very upset, right? Where it backfires is if I started at 2:45, right? You couldn't write a publishable column in 15 minutes. I could write it in an hour, but I could not write it in 15 minutes. And that would be the stress. That would be the anxiety associated with it. So the lead up to, oh my God, I'm not getting it done. I'm not going to get in on time is then you go into the storyline, right? I'm going to lose my job. They're going to, John, my editor, is going to be upset with me, whatever the case is. So when you take that piece that I was talking about earlier, the misplaced emotion, negative storyline, and barriers to performance, and you add it onto a task, that's what's creating the destructive stress. And the worst part is it then takes you away from writing, it took me anyway, writing the column effectively. Like at some point, if I couldn't start till 2:45, I had to then put in systems to say, okay, guys, it's going to be late today. I'm aiming for a 3:30 delivery. And I had to get out of my head, chip away at remove the misplaced emotion. Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. Negative storyline. Oh my gosh, they're going to be so angry with me. And here we go again. And the barrier to performance of, okay, now we got to stop procrastinating. We just got to get it done. Right. So do you see how we can manufacture these moments of flow within our lives? And if we're not getting it during the work week or whatever we deem to be the right time to work on Saturday if you want, but I want you to have the choice. That's the key, having the choice. And so having that little trifecta of continually looking, when am I going to put in a goal? When am I going to put in accountability and a deadline? And then being totally focused and inspired to do that one thing without the distraction of everything else that's sitting in our task circle, right? We can't wear more than one hat at a time. right?
Mhm.
So anyway, that's my thinking around how this has really worked for me and for my clients. So I'm open to your ideas on that, Lisa.
That's brilliant. I want to find out more, Allison, if you don't mind, because I think the fact that, we're all so engrossed with achieving, being efficient, and having a task list and accomplishing because we know we have deadlines, we're working in an organization which demands productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole flow of it, which is I love what you just brought up, where we're so disconnected, perhaps I would say, some level of unawareness of how the body is feeling throughout this whole process of achieving, where we know we have to accomplish something because our boss's demands uh, optimal productivity, right? They want the results, but then our process of delivery, we're stressing ourselves in the brain, our self-talk. We're talking, we're telling ourselves, oh, can we do this? Oh, I'm already feeling stressed, but they may not be aware that the stress markers are already surging. So the whole process of, what the self-talk is inside, what the emotions are. If you're saying, I'm feeling anxiety, but I'm not even noticing that I'm feeling anxious. I just want to do this, but I'm pushing myself through, and the whole process, you're not even enjoying it because all you could think of is just delivering on time.
I'm laughing because it is the professional's conundrum, isn't it? It's the capacity gap. So there's so many pieces of the puzzle that we can unpack here, Lisa. I'm going to tell you the story about the ice cube that became the snowman, because this, if you can be thinking about this every day, then you can start to have the self-awareness of why you're getting into that destructive stress mode and find a solution to get through it. So the ice cube that became the snowman goes like this. Every task and obstacle that we need to deal with, imagine it as an ice cube. And your job each day is to melt those ice cubes as efficiently and effectively as possible. The sooner you do that, the more time you have left for doing other projects or doing more work or taking time off, self-care, all the critical things for actual stress management. But and I'm going to go as far as to say that I think that if you are a talented or even semi-talented professional, and I'm going to guess the people who are showing up to your show are people who are committed to excellence, because otherwise they would not be showing up to figure out how do I get better and more productive, right? Like that's just how it works. If you're a talented professional, then melting the ice cubes is actually really easy. Now, we can usually find a better way to do it. We'll talk about that in a second. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is the human experience that goes around the ice cubes. And this is where we have accessible to us at any moment a mound of snow. And this mound of snow is represented by the misplaced emotion, the negative storyline, and the barriers to performance, like worry, judgment, procrastination, not saying no, not setting boundaries. There are 31 of them in my book, Take Back Your Weekends. And so we take this ice cube and we start packing it in the snow. We grab on a little bit of misplaced emotion. Oh, my boss is, I don't feel heard by my boss, that he doesn't understand this or she doesn't understand this. Or why are my coworkers dropping the ball again? This might be the negative storyline. Or I'm not feeling appreciated. That could be the misplaced emotion on this task. And then the negative storyline, this isn't my job. Why am I doing this? Or these, how we're doing this is not right. Like people don't get it, like whatever it is. And then I don't feel like doing it. There's emotion. So I'm not going to bother. I'm going to procrastinate on it for a while. And then all of a sudden we've taken these ice cubes and we've packed them in this thing. And we've got a snowman. The goal is still to melt the ice cube. But in order to melt the ice cube, we now have to melt all of the snow around the ice cube. And that's what's stealing our daily capacity, as opposed to having a really great system for organizing the tasks that we need to do, understanding how much time they're actually going to take us to do, looking at them and prioritizing which ones need to go first, which one needs my optimal flow time, which one can I squeeze in for, 10 minutes when a coworker is late for a meeting or something like that. So we have a really great system for understanding what needs to get done. Then when it's time to do it, we strip away the emotion, and this takes emotional discipline. And we strip away the negative storyline, and this takes mental discipline. And then we strip away the barrier to performance. I'm not going to procrastinate on this anymore. I'm just going to get it done because my timer's going off and it's time to get to it. And I'm going to go through those tasks, right? And I'm just going to start doing one after another, after another, after another, until that work block is complete.
I love
right?
it.
Like
I love it.
That system is, I'm glad you love this, because this, like you can tell, I'm like so fired up by it. It's like if every person could stop making snowmen out of their ice cubes, imagine the productivity. Because when you think about your limited daily capacity, each of us only has so much time to do, to be, to feel, to think. And if at the end of the day, you're getting to a point where you're so tired, where you can't even think anymore. And by the way, I have been there and I know what it feels like. Then the only option we have is to look, because the tasks aren't going to stop. Like we still have to get the job done. Like our boss still wants it. So the only way we can fix this capacity gap equation is we need to stop putting snow around the tasks.
I love it. I love it. Yes. As you mentioned earlier, it's the whole thing, right? When you have these narratives in the head, when you say to yourself, you know, even Shasi is saying here, Kesavan saying, so fear of failure is not a good motivation. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because when you have those fears, it is, again, it's a procrastination. It's drawing you back. It's taking too much time, which if you think about it, you have spent, I don't know how many minutes you start thinking about fear of failure, and that will be included in the time that's taking you back from finishing the task on time. And also just charging yourself with just this, I can do it. I'm happy doing this. You know, I will create a great job out of this. You know, the performance will be great. So that kind of thinking will create the productivity that you desire. So
brilliant, Lisa. Like, and you know, when you think about the fear of doing the task, that is the self-awareness. That's another layer of snow.
Yes.
So if we just go about our day to day and we're clouded by this feeling of I'm going to fail, which is very natural and normal and happens, then we're actually making everything harder to do because we're using it. But if we don't have the awareness that we're putting that layer of snow on everything we do automatically, then like it's going to start stealing your daily capacity. And you don't even know it. Like I think earlier, Lisa, you had said something and I forgot to pick up on it, but it was like, you don't even know what we don't know. Like until we do this deep dive into our self-awareness, you may not even realize that you are experiencing destructive stress. You may not realize that you're not doing the thing, the work that you need to do as efficiently and effectively as possible. Because maybe there's a better way to do it. You've never asked the question. Maybe you're adding a storyline, i.e. fear, or an emotion, resentment, or, you know, like insert any of those barriers to performance at this point, right? And it's so ingrained in your habit that you don't even know that it's stealing your daily capacity and taking you away from your productivity.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, I know just from coaching that some people, you know, when it comes to working, they, as you say, you brought up this belief where, oh, this is not my job. I'm doing somebody else's work because, you know, they left and I'm taking on. So every time you tell yourself that because you're doing this extra work, you're feeling all this disgruntlement inside, and that becomes your narrative emotion. So that's the because you're so in tune with that, and it becomes you. And unfortunately, you get all this anxiety and this unhappiness inside because you're not enjoying the process. So tell us, Allison.
Well, and one thing. Yeah, and it's interesting because so somebody who is focused on the power of positive thinking, right, which has a role in the world, but you might say, okay, but I am doing somebody else's work and they're not doing it. So that resentment that that you're feeling is legitimate. Like, first we have to validate that. But if we don't solve for it and we allow it to continue to happen, then that's a barrier to performance by not having the boundaries and not having the strategy of looking back. That's why we need our space, our ability and the habit of taking that moment where we can look back on that obstacle and go, okay, what am I going to do to solve this? And perhaps the reason that somebody else is not picking up their own slack is because you're picking it up for them. Just saying, that could be a thing. And this is where we want to look at the situational awareness, the self-awareness, and then the solution activation. Because if you allow something to continue to happen in your life and you aren't going to do the work to fix it, then any moment that you spend complaining about it is stealing from your daily capacity to do, to be, to feel, to think. And
Yes.
so these are the little micro patterns in our lives that we need to get so clear on, and that we're creating them unnecessarily. And this is where the destructive stress is coming from. It's
Now,
like, it's so fascinating to me how we can fix these patterns.
yes, unpacking this. I love it. Now, Catherine has a question. Eva, I'm going to come to your question very shortly. Catherine's question, does it mean that we should reprogram our minds by eliminating all the fears prior to doing the task? If you can, yes, that would be the goal. But then, sometimes it takes more. But as Allison pointed out, right, Allison, you're saying self-awareness. Do you want to add more to this, Allison?
Yes. So if you could figure out how to eliminate all those fears, please let Lisa and I know, and the rest of the community, because I don't know if that's going to happen. Here's the key, though. With this thinking of situational awareness, what is the fear that I'm truly feeling? What is it? And, how do I go into it? The self-awareness, right? Why am I manufacturing this fear? And then the solution activation. And in that case, we have to be brave to do the task with the fear anyway. And so if we can uncover, what is this fear about? And I know, I'll share, I've had lots of fears over the years. And I used to have this approach where I would, as a speaker, I would get like a huge deal. I remember getting a gig for a huge company, and it was like 6 hours of training for an atrocious amount of money, which I now can look back on and go, oh my gosh, what a blessing. And at the time, I got so frozen in fear that I did the job. And then I took my foot off the gas for my business. I wouldn't sell anything more for months. And I was so unself-aware. I didn't know that I just thought, well, maybe I'm just sort of not getting any business. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't believe that I deserved that level of money for the work that I did. And so I sabotaged my next steps because I could have rode the momentum of that and just made that my new regular. Like, oh, that's the expectation. Of course, that's going to happen. And so we have to be aware of what that fear is. And so now when I get a really big gig, I still feel the fear. I still have that twig of, oh my gosh, are they really paying me that to do that? Like, is anybody going to find out that I don't deserve that? Right? And so now I feel that, and I literally have the emotional and mental discipline now to go, okay, I'm going to feel that going to go into it, really sit with it, and I'm going to take action to counteract how that fear would normally have showed up and sabotaged me in the past. And so we can't eliminate these natural emotions. The beauty is that this snow is part of the human experience. This is how this is the how we allow that snow to come into our workday and our personal lives is the journey of self-discovery. That is, when I said the doctor, earlier, for those of you who have been around the whole time, which is great, you remember the story of that doctor who told me, reevaluate your expectations for life. He said I needed to be resilient. And yes, he was half right. I do need to be resilient so that the challenges we face do not define our outcome. But more importantly, I had to figure out, how can I stop turning ice cubes into snowmen. Because when you only physically at that time have 2 to 5 hours of functionality a day, and I needed to serve clients, get clients, write a column, build my business, like the whole thing, I needed to look at every ice cube I was dealing with and figure out, how do you do it as efficiently and effectively as humanly possible? And any snow that was created around it, those patterns were stealing my ability to get the thing I needed to get done.
Nice. One thing, Allison, with coaching, and this is also part of an NLP technique, where we have these beliefs, like, for example, Shasi brought up the fear of failure, right? Or the fear of not being able to deliver to the expectation of the boss, right? So that stays in the back of the mind. So one tool you can use is to kind of like flick it, like how you just use your finger and just flick that thought away. Yeah. So if you feel like you become lighter out of that behavior, and then you can just proceed. So every thought, everything that draws you down, that pulls you down, you can just, be aware and then flick it away.
Yeah.
So that's one NLP technique. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And NLP can be such a great, it is, like, period, no can be, is such an incredible system, like, or way of thinking, and is so powerful to do that. And the flicking away, here's something, and Lisa, maybe you have some insight on this, how it worked. My concern sometimes is that people will do that gotta go technique. So I'll flick it away, but they're flicking it before they understand that it's there or the purpose of what it is doing for us. Right. And so that's the heavy work. That's heavy, not like that's the important work, I think is a better thing, is figuring out, why does that thing keep coming up on my shoulder?
Yes.
Oh, because I have a loop in my head that says I'm not worthy. I have a loop in my head that says I'm not, like, this boss who I used to have, who embarrassed me in the meeting because he liked to call people out publicly. I'm afraid now to start putting a report in to the team or to give my ideas in the boardroom. Like, if we don't figure out why that keeps showing up, it's going to keep showing up.
Exactly. You nailed it. Yeah. So that's the deep work. And that needs time. So if, let's say, you need something that's very quick, that you want to just be able to concentrate on the work, get it done for the hour. I have no time to kind of deep dive into this. Yeah, just flick it away. And then when in your own time, have this Q&A, this internal Q&A, and find out. If you need a professional to help out, yes, that's where you go to a coach or a psychiatrist or therapist, etc. Yeah,
so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try it. I'll let you know how it goes, because I have my little timer that I use, old school. Do you see this thing? It's from like 1972. And I will turn it up, and I'm going to make a new, how you can habit stack things. So the second I turn this, I'm going to go like that. And that's going to be my symbol to be like, no snow allowed here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And go into it. And then that's very cool. I love that technique. Thank you for sharing.
You're most welcome. Now, Ivar says, hi, Allison. Many people engage more indoor activities such as gardening, yoga, and meditation, especially during the lockdown. How often should they recharge themselves? Okay.
Yes. So the question of how often, and I would also add in how somebody should recharge, is as different for Lisa as it is for me, for every human being, because we need to know what actually works for us. So for some people, meditation is the answer, right? I need to have some quiet time. But for me, I am more stimulated by really loud, fantastic music and a dance party. So if I'm feeling heavy at my desk, we have to be aware of that. And it's time, like the timer goes off, I'm more likely to grab my AirPods, put on a really great song, go outside and have a little dance party on my deck, and come back in, right? So you've got to figure out what it is. And not every break and not every recharge needs to be 45 minutes or an hour. It could be literally 2 minutes of doing something that you love to do, that energizes you, so that you have the space to come back to. And this is where we want to look at your week strategically and go, okay, where is my energy dipping? Where is it the absolute most flow? What are the activities that will recharge me? And Lisa, I think this is a really good time to bring up I think so. Stress management. Often, when you talk about being resilient and having stress management, we tend to do it by thinking, okay, so we need to exercise, we need proper nutrition, we need rest, we need connection, we need laughter and optimism. Those are what I call the critical 6 of stress management. However, if you are someone who is operating consistently at your top capacity and you're on the cusp of burnout, when you look at each one of those critical 6 that are recommended by all the incredible stress management professionals who are out in the internet and the world teaching us how to do this, they're actually additional tasks that we need to put into our day. And if you don't have any capacity left over to get the things you need to get done already, then how are you going to add them in? And so this becomes the conundrum. And so we then have a capacity equation gap. You have this much to do in a day, or like capacity to do, to be, to feel, to think, and you have this much that needs to get done. And there's no wiggle room there. No wiggle room. We're out of touch. And so we either need to expand our capacity, and that to me is a very long-term personal development journey that you need to go on to be able to do that. We need to delete things that are taking our capacity. So really looking and saying, okay, you know what? These are the things I don't need to be doing. These are the things I can delegate, delete, or just start saying no to. So that's a possibility, but we can't delete everything. So we're still going to have a fairly full capacity once we've deleted some of those things. And so my thinking is we need to minimize and shrink how much capacity each of those tasks and obstacles are taking out of our day. And because if you take an ice cube and you put it into this capacity equation, that only takes a little bit of room. If we take snowmen and put it into this capacity equation, the same task will actually steal more of our capacity and fill up and take that away. And so this is where the power is in deleting that snow and shrinking how much each thing takes from us. Then we have the freedom. Then we have the time freedom. And then it's like this beautiful cycle. If we shrink how much time, then we're feeling really productive. We're putting the systems in place and we're getting high level of outputs per hour because we're choosing to use and harness the power of good stress that we talked about before. And then you can take the weekend off. You can take Fridays off. You can say, I'm not going to work on Friday afternoons. But you don't feel guilt because you know you did what was most important in the best way possible from Monday to Thursday. And then you're refreshed. And then Monday you show back up and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, what is my plan for this week? And I'm going to be so in flow and I'm going to get that done. And then you're even more innovative and more creative and more in flow. Like it's just this beautiful cycle that keeps and bringing you this time freedom. Just makes me excited. Sorry, Lisa. I'm like, no, actually, I won't even apologize. I didn't do that, but does it make sense?
Yes.
Good.
It also comes down to, Allison, you pointed that out, about boundary. Part of it, where we hear this remark so often, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to exercise, to eat well, to cook myself better food, more nutritious food, and that I don't have enough time. So it's coming down to, I heard you say initially earlier on, it's about also having boundaries. So what are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? What else, Allison?
Right. And so the thing is, so I don't have time to exercise. I'm going to ask you to apply the problem-solving framework to that statement. So remember, that's situational awareness, self-awareness, and solution activation, because the solution we want is to integrate exercise into your life. So situational awareness, looking and saying, okay, is that legitimate? I don't have exercise, or is it that I don't want to exercise? Maybe you don't like exercise and you just don't want to admit it. So you use the I don't have time issue, right? And so actually choose to do the framework to explore how am I going to integrate this into my life? Because I'm someone who used to not integrate exercise into my life. And right now I'm doing a challenge called 75 Hard. I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but essentially
No.
it's 75 days of doing 2 workouts a day, plus a whole bunch of other things. 2 45-minute workouts a day. And I'll tell you, when you make a commitment to do that, I am on day 61 of doing 2 workouts a day. And my business has never had more tasks required of it than in 15 years in business as it does right now. And I'm still doing it because it's about choices. It doesn't make me special. It makes me committed.
Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Oh, good. Now, Catherine says it really boils down to the willingness of an individual to allocate time for a specific activity. Yeah, it's about what you want, right?
Yes.
And moving that needle, making a commitment, and also saying, how do you make more time for yourself? So, Allison, you're saying, how do you claim back more time so that you can do the things that you love, although you're an employee and you're a mother and you have other responsibilities.
Yeah. So this is the strategy. This is, you've got to not just keep going through the motions. You've got to actually make a decision to look at how am I going to solve this issue of not having time for myself. So we look at it and we say, okay, here's the reality, right? We've got to first figure out what am I doing, what it needs to get done, and fill that in. But we also have to fill in and make the choices that one of the tasks we need to do is take time for ourselves. See, if your boss said, I need you to do this report and I need you to have it done by Thursday at 3 p.m., you're going to get it done because you have a high level of value, a high level of accountability to get it done. We don't tend to treat our personal needs with the same level of accountability, deadline, and goal. And so I would say actually putting that in, but if you can figure out how to get your workflow fixed so that the productivity is there, and using all of these things that we've talked about, so that that's fixed, there's going to be time freedom left over.
What about Allison? Sorry,
Yeah.
I have to cut you and just ask you this question. Now, what about if that person, you say, I have the ability to deliver because I know my time frame to the deadline, I have ample time. What about if it's a person who says, inside the self-talk is, oh no, I've got already so much on my plate. Okay, I know I'm already rushing the other 2 tasks and I have this piled on. I am not sure I'm able to deliver, but I'm saying yes to my boss because I want to please the person.
Okay, so we've got to figure out when you need to say no, right? Again, problem solving framework. We just put this on everything. It is just the thing we put on everything because we got to recognize that you're actually doing this, because the reality is there will always be too much to do with too little time and too few resources, period. Like there is no way to delete that reality. However, and better word, and how we respond to that reality is going to be the key to how much stress we feel with that reality. So if we know that reality exists for us and there's too much to do, too little time, too few resources, we have multiple hats that we need to wear, and we're trying to juggle it all and multitask it all, and we're just on the cusp of burnout because it's just not possible. Then what we need to do is we need to look and say, okay, how am I doing all of this? Like, am I doing everything in the most efficient and effective way possible? Chances are probably not, because we're so caught up in the doing that we're never strategically looking at how we can better implement solutions. And so, but here's what I've found to be true is if we have a task that is 15 minutes, and we add any of that snow around it, and we're consistently making that 15-minute task turn into even 30, we're we're not at our optimal level. And so everything in my thinking is about getting the 15-minute task to just be a 15-minute task. And you would be shocked at how much time freedom we can find, even when we have too much to do with too little time and too few resources. It's how we approach that reality that is going to make the difference. And so there's no one way to process our tasks and in the most effective way. Like everybody's got their own way that's going to work for them. I use what I call a task circle. I look at all of the things I need to do and I separate it based on the area of responsibility. It was a little bit different how most people do it. So most people say, okay, I got to make all these phone calls, and they put like a big, long, in effect, like to-do list, right? The way I do it is I have clients who I need to serve. I have marketing I need to do, sales, right? I'm trying to think of my cast circle. There are lots of them around here. Administration, like my CEO duties, and personal. Those are my 5 areas of responsibility that need to go on my task circle. And then I put all of the tasks within each bucket. And the key here is when you do this, you have to recognize that you can only wear one hat at a time. Think about it. If I had, those are 5 hats, right? And then usually I have a project that I'm working on, which gives me another bucket. So call it 6 hats. If I were to wear 6 hats sitting here, you'd be like, what's wrong with her? But if you think about how we are doing our workday, we're often trying to wear 2 or 3 hats at the exact same time. Instead of going and saying, okay, right now I'm going to go on my I'm wearing my sales hat, and I am going to do all of the tasks in my sales bucket. And it's the emotional discipline to allow the rest of it to stay there. Trust the piece of paper. The task will remain. And we focus totally on that one hat. And then in our next work block, we say, okay, I'm going to put on my marketing hat. And when we put on our marketing hat, we do not think about the fact that I need to pick up my dry cleaning, right? We just go all in on that one hat at a time. So hopefully, and then that consistent effectiveness of outputs per hour will allow us to buy back those little minutes. And last thing I'll say here, Lisa, because I suspect we're kind of over on our time, which is fine for me, but because I'll talk about this all day. But to recognize that time freedom doesn't come in 2-hour chunks. It comes by finding 1 minute here, 10 minutes here, 30 minutes here, 2 minutes here. It's the accumulation of blasting through that snow on every task and obstacle that we need to deal with that will actually free our capacity to process and deal with the things that really matter most in our lives.
I would definitely say it's optimizing our energy and also our focus here. And before I come to the part where, what it's like to be happy working, what do you know? How do you know that you're doing this right, Allison? When you say you have that one hat and you're doing it to the best you can and you're really enjoying that process. So the emotions that you feel would be the gauge, right? That tells you, okay, you are on the right path. So tell us the emotions then for us, for everybody to be aware of.
There's so many, and it might be different for every person. I think the biggest indicator is that when you take time off, you are totally embracing it and not thinking about what needs to get done at work. That to me is the absolute biggest indicator. When I can get a business owner, right, and lead them to a path where they're no longer worrying. And like I remember one of my clients, we worked together for a year, and when he came to me, he was like, I can't let go of the work that needs to get done. I'm constantly worrying. And I went on a family vacation, and the whole time all I did was obsess about work, and I didn't enjoy one thing with my family. And so a year later, the fact that he sent me a note after the vacation to say, I just had the best vacation of my life, like I have chills, right? Because he didn't worry about it at all. So I think, first of all, guilt-free relaxation is a really good indicator that you are on the right track, because we don't feel guilty when we were fully productive. Now, another indicator might be the sense of accomplishment and flow and, oh my gosh, I got all my priorities done today. Like you'll actually see a difference in your work output. That is that feeling. And the other thing I think that I really notice with people who adopt this philosophy is that they end up seeing just this, like the important things get done as opposed to the busy work gets done. That's, yeah, that's really, I think that sense of satisfaction is a big, big part of it.
Yes. And also, while you're doing it, for me, it's this sense of flow that you are just in the task. Like you have to write a report, it's all that energy flowing for that report. It's like, you have all that goals of what you want to achieve. Okay, first paragraph, I want to say this, the body's going to be this, the end is going to be this. And it's on point. Like literally, you're just flowing and enjoying the process. Yeah.
Right.
Now, I know we are really crunch on time. I just want to get one point here before we leave, because I think this is also part of our topic today, where you allow your work to bleed into your weekends, right? So, Allison, perhaps some tangible strategies for people to take back their weekend.
Yes. Okay.
Especially in this pandemic where the rules are so blurred between family and work life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first of all, I do want to clarify, if you choose to work on the weekend, go for it. I would be a total hypocrite to say I never write an article on a Saturday morning because I get into flow, but I want you to have the choice. Okay. So, but also don't forget, like I'll take Friday off, afternoon off, or on Wednesday morning, like whatever, right? It's about the choice. So tangible things, especially if you're working from home, do not sit in the same spot where you work. Like the second you go into the environment for your working area is like, that is just a recipe for I can't detach from work. Now, I've talked with people and they're like, Allison, all I've got is my dining room table. I'm like, okay, then when you're done working, you need to literally take all of the stuff off of the dining room table and put it away. So the dining room table is just dining room table. Or sit in a different seat. Like if you are working from your couch, good luck on your aerodynamic, like your physical might be really, hurting at this point, hunching over, but sit facing a different way so that when you're facing the TV and you're enjoying your time and it's movie night with your kids, you're sitting in a different seat facing towards the TV. But when you're working and in work mode, you're actually facing the other way towards the door. Right? Like little things like that so you can disconnect. The biggest thing though is if you get the work done during the week, if you have a sense of accomplishment and know that your priorities are getting done each and every day, that you are in having bursts of flow throughout your work week, then I will almost guarantee you that the satisfaction you feel of a productive week will give you the emotional reprieve to relax and know that you've got it, right? Like that you can trust yourself that I have a system that next Monday when I get back to work is going to be hugely productive and hugely valuable. And therefore I feel a little bit. So that separation, but also like get off the phone, right? Don't, and that's hard. Like I have to put some limits on my phone sometimes, right? Where I turn it off, leave it in the other room, all of those pieces, but really, and plan things, like plan fun things that you're going to go do and then actually do them. Because sometimes we plan fun things and they sound really fun on Wednesday, but on Friday night when you're exhausted, they don't sound so fun. I don't know if you're at a point, Lisa, where that happens.
Yes, because you're so tired. Yeah, because you're literally just zonked out. Now, Emma Lim says that I guess it depends on the supervisors we report to and the job nature of whether they should stand by if they are on leave or at the weekends. So yeah, it's boundary and respecting that boundary. So if it's a supervisor who is not able to do that, what's your take on this, Allison?
Yeah, so this is the conversation that you need to have with your leadership if you're not happy with how things are going in your day-to-day. Because if you're feeling overworked, if you're overwhelmed, if you feel like you can't disconnect, then chances are everybody else on the team is feeling the exact same way. And the conversation of burnout, and especially with leaders, is really growing across the globe right now. And an uncomfortable, difficult conversation with a leader to say, look, I need some boundaries. I need some time off. I can't be on call on Saturday night at 10 o'clock when you're working. Like, I love my work. And if I can't fix this, I don't have a choice but to quit. That is although uncomfortable, is a much more important conversation than you up and quitting your job and then leaving that company is left having to fill your role, right? So the cost of filling a role, like I've seen different statistics, but is like 2 to 3 times your annual salary plus the gap when everybody else on the team needs to do the work that you're not there to do anymore. So quite frankly, I think having that difficult conversation with a leader to say, I need some boundaries, is much more effective than not doing it. But the other thing is you can just say, look, I'm not available this weekend. If it's absolutely urgent, you can call the house, but otherwise I'm turning off my emails just to have some, for the next 24 hours, or put on an out of office. And, I think that's sort of where I'm at on this thinking. Lisa, what do you think? Like setting those boundaries?
Yes, boundaries are important. And I would also say any leaders who are listening to this conversation is to know that if your team or any of your team members are feeling this and they leave, means, the new person that's coming in is going to feel the same thing, very likely. And you have to kind of gather, right? So if you're forcing or putting all this pressure on your teammate or your team members to work on the weekends and into their family time and their personal time, that kind of productivity, it can sustain probably on the short term, probably that 1 or 2 weekends. But beyond that, you're going to get a stressed out team. Productivity is going to dip. And what do you want as a leader? In the end, what is the goal? What is the outcome? Do you want a happy team, a happy employee who can perform at the highest level, who can perform optimally? So that's a question that leaders would have to have, So, yeah.
And I think people are starting to ask that question more freely because mental health is becoming, it's no longer a taboo topic in most corporate environments. Many, let's not say most, in many, but not all. Like, we have a long way to go, but I think that people are recognizing that your mental health and of your team is in direct proportion related to the success of the team.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So Eva says, she asks, is having a separate room of workspace from chill out lounge, especially when working from home? Yes, Eva, that would be good. Catherine, be a leader that not only train, but know how to incorporate coaching to their subordinates. Oh yeah, that would be wonderful. I think any leaders who have this extra coaching skills, they can pick that up. That would be tremendously helpful to be able to mentor or coach the team. So yeah, your take, Allison, before we say goodbye to everybody.
We covered a lot today, and I know that some of these concepts may feel a little bit foreign or just like be eye-opening is what I hope for it, because here's what I know is the workload is not going to stop. And you only have so much capacity each day to do, to be, to feel, to think. And so if this reality of workflow and your capacity are so overloaded, then you have a personal capacity gap in the equation. And I am going to challenge you, to encourage you to strategically look at that mismatch in the equation so that you can actually find those gaps in the buy back some of your time freedom. And ultimately, you will then take back your weekends, have the choice to do that. And my hope for you is that you will stress less while still doing more, and ultimately will be happier. So thank you for having me. That is sort of my closing end thought.
Very nicely put. Thank you so much, Allison, for being so generous with the sharing and so many wonderful insights that we can all really benefit from. Thank you to all our people who are in the audience who have contributed, who have commented. Thank you so much for joining in the conversation. Know that you can watch this the show on YouTube. We'll provide you the link. And once again, thank you, Allison. Have a wonderful weekend, wonderful week ahead. This show is brought to you by Leaderonomics and Opeaklife, and I'm Lisa Wong. It's been an honor serving you. I'd like to thank our producer, Shasi, and the entire team. And guys, be fulfilled, live a purposeful life, and we'll see you in our next show. Bye for now.